Welcome to the League of Women Voters candidate forum for the 3 Anoka Hennepin School Board seats in this year's November 5th election. I am Karen Varian, member of the League of Women Voters, ABC, and a resident of Blaine. The League of Women Voters works to promote the active and informed participation of citizens in the voting process by conducting candidate forums such as this and by promoting voter registration drives for all eligible voters. The League does not endorse, support, or oppose any political party or candidate, but we do study issues of local, state, and national importance. The League is open to membership for men and women of all ages, 16 or over, and we invite you to join us. You can visit our website at lwvabcmn.org for more information. In Anoka Hennepin District 2, incumbent board member Marci Anderson of Blaine is running unopposed, as is District 5 incumbent Nicole Hayes of Brooklyn Park. We have invited both Ms. Anderson and Ms. Hayes to give up to 5-minute statements of their concerns for and visions of Anoka Hennepin School District for the next 4 years. After their statements, we will move on to the only contested school board seat, District 1. Incumbent Tom Heidemann of Anoka is facing challenger Erin Heers-McArdle, also of Anoka, in a seat that represents residents of the cities of Anoka and Ramsey. Let's begin with a statement from board members Anderson and Hayes. Ms. Anderson, you may go first, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. And I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this and inviting me to participate. I really appreciate the opportunity. In December, I'm going to be coming up on the end of my 3rd term in office. And, you know, when you consider a run like this, I always have to take a minute to reflect, or actually more than a minute, but my husband and I spent some time really thinking about, you know, our kids are grown. Is this, you know, the right thing for me to rerun again? And we spent a lot of time talking and trying to figure out, you know, is this the right move? And I kept coming back to, we have so many things that we've done great here, but we still have work to do. And I believe that I can still continue to contribute. So that was really the basis for my decision to run again. And some of my qualifications, I've been a volunteer for years. I volunteered in the Girl Scouts early on, Blaine Soccer Club, the booster clubs, parent legislative team. I served on the parent legislative team for years, and all of that has helped me kind of develop the qualifications that I have today. And my day job, I'm a problem solver for my company, and I've worked for that company for 30 years. And while we all have to, live within certain rules, most of the things that I do for that company are to blaze new trails and create solutions for some of the challenges that we face. And I think those experiences also have really helped me in this role. Craig and I have lived in Blaine since 1996. We have 2 grown girls now that have gone through the system. They started in Johnsville, went through Roosevelt and Blaine High School, and they are now, you know, off successfully adulting. And I really believe that their success today is dependent, or really because of the education they received here in Anoka Hennepin. I think it's just a great place to raise a family. My oldest daughter and her husband have blessed us with 2 great, fantastic grandchildren, and education has always been just a huge part of our family. Some of the issues that I still want to kind of see, you know, throughout my term, or if I'm reelected, which hopefully I will be, is we still have major construction projects going on. We just launched our equity plan, so I'm really interested to see how that turns out. Certainly our continuous improvement process is a huge deal to me. That, you know, was a big deal when I first came on the board. That took a long time to really get to where it is today, and we're really starting to see those results. So I still want to see that to continue to grow and you know, work through the system. So those are really the reasons why I'm rerunning, some of my qualifications, and I really hope that the next 4 years we can really take where we are to the next level. So I appreciate the time.
Thanks, Ms. Anderson. Ms. Hayes?
Thank you also to the League of Women Voters, and also for all of you for being here tonight, and those that are watching online. Your involvement and your interest in being here tonight and participating is critical to the success of our students. So thank you for your support. My name is Nicole Hayes. I have served on the Anoka Hennepin School Board since 2015, representing the wonderful communities of Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, Southern Coon Rapids, and that little northern tip of Fridley that is in the Anoka Hennepin School District. My husband and I have lived in Brooklyn Park since 1997. We have 2 children, both of who graduated from Champlain Park High School and are K-12 students in the Anoka Hennepin School District. One graduated in 2015 and the other in 2018. When people have asked, why are you doing this? Why did you decide to run? Why do you continue to run? For me, it's really one reason, and that's the students. And truth be told, it's 40,000 reasons. It's every student, from our early childhood education programs to our adult basic education programs. I want every student to have the opportunity to reach their highest potential. And I believe we can do this by providing enrichment opportunities for all students, by closing the achievement gap, by meeting student needs, and helping ensure that all students not just graduate, but have a plan after graduation. Some of the things that we've accomplished over the past 4 years that I hope I've played at least a small role in is the community support of that $249 million bond. And an additional thank you to all of the community members and taxpayers who overwhelmingly supported that ask. We opened 2 new elementary schools this fall on time and on budget. We have huge projects going at our 5 traditional high schools in the district, and those projects are going to improve our academics, our athletics, and our arts offerings for all of our students. I'm really proud to be a part of that project and to see phase 2 coming together this spring. I've also participated in a subcommittee that developed the equity and achievement plan for the school district. I'm deeply proud of the work of that committee and am eager to see how the equity plan goes from paper to process to achievement for all students in our district. I also want to share the success and the achievement at Champlain Park and Coon Rapids High Schools for their growing and continuing positive trend in graduation rates, and then also the closing of the achievement gap. 8 years ago at Champlain Park High School, that gap was 20 points. Now it's 4. And at Coon Rapids High School in 2017, they closed that achievement gap. So those are real success stories that as a community we can be proud of and learn and share throughout our district so that one day there isn't an achievement gap and all of our students are successful on their path post-graduation. Serving as your school board representative is a tremendous honor. I thank you for your trust and for your support. I look forward to the next 4 years and hope to continue to represent the communities with the same promises that I offered 4 years ago, and that is to be responsive to students and their families, to be accountable to community taxpayers, to be supportive of teachers and all of our staff, and to always celebrate the success of every single student. Thank you so much for your trust and support, and please vote on Tuesday, November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Marci Anderson and Nicole Hayes. Now, let's turn to District 1 candidates, Tom Heidemann and Erin Heers-McArdle. Welcome. We now have candidates for District 1, Tom Heidemann and Erin Heers-McArdle. We will start by asking 3 introductory questions. The responses will be timed by a league member who will give candidates a 15-second notice before time is up, and then a stop sign at the end of 1 minute. Then we will take audience questions and end with a 1-minute closing statement. Let's start with the 3 introductory questions that were given to the candidates ahead of time. And again, your answers are limited to 1 minute. Describe your background in community involvement. This first question will go to Erin Heers-McArdle first.
Okay, so my background is as a fine art jeweler and metalsmith. As a child, I always knew I wanted to go into the arts, but I also loved math. So this has brought 2 of my loves together. I work as a fine art jeweler out of my studio at home, and it's one of my great passions and has always been there. My husband, Chris, and I moved to Anoka with our son 3 years ago. He is now in his 4th year in the Anoka Hennepin district. And this is the community we actually wanted to live in. So when we were looking around, we fell in love with Anoka. We came here. My past might not be rooted here, but my future is, and my son's childhood, it has very much taken over with Anoka, and we all love it very much. Can't say enough about his teachers. He is a student at Franklin Elementary in 1st grade. I enjoy volunteering at his school when I'm able, and much of my community involvement is through my local church, helping with children's programs and through various other programs involved through that.
Thanks. Tom Heidemann. Again, the question is describe your background in community involvement.
You bet. During the day, I'm an electrical engineering manager for Honeywell. I've been a manager for the last 20 years, and I'm a 36-year employee. I have a master's degree in electrical engineering and a lot of training in Six Sigma and other management programs within industry. I've lived in the community for 34 years, and I've got over 24 years of volunteer service to the community in the area of education. I've been a school board member now for the last 10 years, and what that means is that the school board, all 6 or all 5, had decided unanimously that I was the right person to be the leader and the voice for the school board, and I've done that and served in that capacity for 10 years. I believe I have a depth of knowledge that's been gained over the years of my service, and I have the expertise and the history of what has happened in the past to help us make sure we don't live those mistakes in the future.
Thanks. We usually like to have candidates switch around for the first one to start. So, Tom Heidemann, I'm going to give you the first chance to answer this next question. What are your qualifications and why are you seeking this office?
Okay, well, I talked a little bit about my qualifications. The reason that I'm seeking the office is I do have a passion for education. I have for a long time. I was motivated to get involved as a volunteer long before there was any thought of being on the school board. My kids were young. There were financial challenges within Anoka Hennepin at the time, and I became involved and was one of the founders of what is now the parent legislative team. I believe that over that time, I've gained a lot of knowledge and experience in the issues, many of them very difficult, that we have to face in Anoka Hennepin. I also believe that we can improve in what we do as an organization, and that was one of the reasons why I've been a champion of continuous improvement and why we have a process in place now to drive positive change for our organization.
Thanks. Ms. Heers-McArdle?
I'm running for the Anoka Hennepin School Board because I want a school system that responds to the needs of students, families, and teachers in a way where all parties feel like their voices are heard and their thoughts are considered. As the parent of an Anoka Hennepin student, I have a direct interest in our schools and seeing that we're doing all we can to improve them. I have over 20 years of experience as an advocate for people with disabilities, most often assisting them in their educational pursuits, navigating the system, identifying accommodations, and teaching them to be advocates for themselves so they aren't reliant on other people for that. I've also have experience as a national board member for an awareness and advocacy organization. My experience working and volunteering in public schools gives me an inside perspective and context. I've been a supplemental art teacher through grant-funded programs, an after-school coordinator and tutor, a paraprofessional, and a volunteer who filled in doing whatever I was asked to do at times.
All right, the next question will first go to Ms. Heers-McArdle. What are your short and long-term goals for the school district's future?
One of my long-term goals is to help bridge the achievement gap. We have some students who are doing so well. One of our favorite babysitters just graduated last year with multiple college credits under her belt. That gives her a jump start into the future. And we have so many amazing students who are doing that. But we also have kids who are falling through the cracks. And no matter how hard our teachers and administrators work on that, there's only so much we can do in the school. Only 20 to 40% of a student's success is based on what happens in the school. So we need to look at that other 60 to 80%. That's what happens outside of school. And often it's just that basic needs aren't being met. So wraparound or community schools address those needs by often taking outside services from organizations that already exist. They're already in place, and it brings them into a more accessible area where students can access them.
Thanks. Now, this question goes to Mr. Heidemann. What are your short and long-term goals for the school district's future?
Absolutely. Successful students. We in Anoka Hennepin are driven to improve the number of students that are academically achieving. We talked a little bit, or my colleagues did, about our successes with the achievement gap. We're very proud that in Anoka Hennepin School Districts, we're one of the lowest achievement gaps in the metro area. That's an area of focus that we need to stay committed to long term. Critical to that is making sure that all of our third graders read well by third grade, because we know there's a correlation, strong correlation between reading well in third grade and success post-high school. So we need to make sure that we stay focused on that. We need to spend our resources efficiently and make sure that we're implementing programs that we know will work. And we have to support teachers. Teachers are absolutely critical to our success, and we got to make sure that we're making the necessary changes in our curriculum and our processes so that they can be successful in the classroom.
Thank you. We will now go on to the audience questions. And the first one is, what will be your top priority as a school board member? And we'll start with Mr. Heidemann.
Top priority is successful students. Everything we do is about our students being successful post-high school. So we want to make sure we have the best programming in our system to meet the needs of a very diverse population. We want to make sure we can meet the needs of our advanced learners with like a program we opened at Eisenhower. We want to make sure that we have talent development programs in each of our schools to meet the needs of students across the district. We want to make sure we have intensive supports and interventions for our students that are struggling, and that we continue to provide the necessary support for their success. But also important is to be committed to the whole child. Everything is not about test scores, and we have to make sure we preserve things like our elective-rich high school program that allows students a lot of choices in their selection of courses as we try to foster that whole child for post-high school success.
Okay, Ms. Heers-McArdle, I just want to say before we go on is I'm not going to keep repeating the question to save us some time. So if you do need it repeated, let me know.
Yes, please repeat the question.
Yeah, sure. What will be your top priority as a school board member?
My top priority will be to the students. Obviously, they are what the school system is all about. Not just providing good schools and talent development and special ed that is appropriate to all of our students, but also ensuring that we have high-quality teachers, making sure that our teachers' salaries are on par with other school systems, and also keeping up with inflation. We can't keep good teachers around if we aren't paying them well. And every study out there shows that teacher experience is one of the two measurable indices when it comes to students doing well in school. Class size and teacher experience. So if we want to keep our good teachers around, we need to make sure they're paid well, and then they can do right by our students, and we can ensure their success.
Thank you. The next question is, How much should the board seek out the views of teachers, other school employees? We'll start with Ms. Heers-McArdle.
One of the things I would like to implement is having small groups of teachers regularly meet. I mean, all the teachers I would like to regularly meet in a way that they don't feel threatened. That's one of the things I've talked to a lot of teachers about, and they don't feel they're being heard by the school board. And when I've asked ways that that would work, they have specifically said that they would like to meet with people who will keep their views anonymous. So that is one of the things I would like to look into. Our teachers are amazing, but sometimes there are things that need to be dealt with that they aren't comfortable going to their superiors over and that they don't feel like are being heard by the school board.
Mr. Heidemann, do you need the question repeated or not?
No, that's
okay,
fine.
thank you.
Thank you. So this goes back to about 10 years ago, and Ms. Anderson talked about our continuous improvement model. There were times when there was no real teacher voice in a lot of the decisions that we were making. And one of the things that we really set course on and really made as a reality is teacher input into the curriculum process very early. We have standardized processes that are documented that administration and staff are walking through. We have created a curriculum and instruction committee that makes sure that we're following the policy and that those voices are being put into the system. We make sure that piloting of new curriculum and systems are within, are being validated and followed. I also would say that we also do anonymous surveys, and I think that's really important, that we allow input that is anonymous so that the board has time to consider that, and we do that every year as part of our engagement process.
Thank you. The next question is, with the opening of 2 new schools, complete with all new facilities and new supplies, how do you plan to address the inequity between students in these areas, the new schools, and those in smaller, older, and oftentimes more challenged schools? Mr. Heidemann, you're first.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I live that in Anoka because I have some of the oldest schools. Part of the bond and levy is also in part of phase 2 is the support of those older facilities to make sure that they're well kept, the aesthetics are good, that the supplies are there, and that the investments in technology are also there. We have separate funding mechanisms or streams that courtesy of our taxpayers to make sure that everybody has the same type of technology across our system. So it's really a big focus now on making sure that each of our facilities are world-class and great facilities, and that'll be part of our phase 2 planning. I'm so excited with the plans for the Fred Moore campus. It's going to be an absolute beautiful facility when we're done with that.
Ms. Heers-McArdle?
So I have a son who goes to one of those older schools, and I have been in it, and I am impressed with the work that the board has done to keep things up to date. There is a charm to those schools that you don't have in these big, shiny new schools. So it isn't that one is any worse than the other, as long as we keep up with technology and make sure that our students have the same, not just technology, but the same experiences. It's just a building. So as long as those needs are being met, I don't see an issue with the actual buildings themselves. There are some parts of, my son goes to Franklin. There are some places where I do see where there could be improvement, and the board has been dealing with those, and it's nice to see that they aren't just being forgotten. It's not just, I know when I was going up the stairs one day, I noticed that there was a slight change. Most people probably wouldn't have noticed it, but it made some cohesiveness through the school that I did notice, and I think the school system is doing a good job of keeping that together.
All right, next question is, would you support a gender-inclusive policy for our school district? Ms. McArdle. Heers-McArdle.
Heers-McArdle, yes. Absolutely. I am all for a gender-inclusive policy. I'm a firm believer in affirming our students who maybe don't fit the standard mold that we have always seen. Science shows that the binary is not not the only way it is. There are students who fall outside that, and there's scientific evidence to show that. We also need to do right by them with their mental health, and affirming them is one way we can do that. It is one of the strongest ways we can do that. Having groups inside the school is another way we can help with that. So yes, I absolutely do advocate for that.
Mr. Heidemann.
Yes, we have gender-inclusive guidelines that we follow within Anoka Hennepin, as well as our basic policies relative to non-discrimination based on any kind of student difference that we have. So we continue to make sure that we welcome every student, and Anoka Hennepin will continue to do that, and we work with every student and their family, especially those who are identifying as a different gender. We spend extra time to make sure that we're working with the families and working to make sure we're meeting the needs of those students. So I do believe we do have good guidelines in place to make sure that every child feels welcome in Anoka Hennepin.
Thank you. The next question is, I am concerned about the increased incidence of racism and discrimination. Discrimination I hear about from fellow parents. How do we support all of the students in our changing district? Mr. Heidemann.
Well, that's really frustrating to hear, because we certainly do not want to believe that we have discrimination within our schools. Certainly, I hope it's not from our staff. Our staff go through a lot of training relative to how to make sure that their own biases are understood and that they can treat every student as they deserve to be treated. When it comes to student interactions, those are dealt on a case-by-case basis as the need arises based on what this particular situation is. But yes, that would be very troubling in my mind to believe that we have major issues of discrimination, because that's not anything that we would tolerate, and we certainly would want to take action.
Ms. Heers-McArdle.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure. I am concerned about the increased incidence of racism and discrimination I hear about from fellow parents. How do we support all of the students in our changing district?
I think one of the big ways we can do this is to think about the students who maybe are in the more diverse populations. What do they see? Who do they see as the people standing in front of them teaching the classes? Most of our teachers do not reflect our students that are coming from. We have lots of African students. We have lots of Central American students. So I think, first of all, having teachers who maybe understand firsthand what these students are going through and see the microaggressions that happen on a daily basis. I was not aware of a lot of these things until I was teaching in a high school class. Tiny little things that are said every day that really affect students. But when we have more teachers who can relate to the students and students that can relate to the teachers, I think that would really help. So I think we need to be concerned about hiring more teachers, have more diversity, physical. We don't have a whole lot of teachers with physical impairments that other students can relate to. We just need to look at the overall makeup.
Thank you. Next question is, there is widespread confusion about what comprehensive sex ed actually is. Can you tell us what you believe comprehensive sex ed involves and indicate whether or not you support it? Ms. Heers-McArdle, you're first.
I am absolutely a supporter of comprehensive sex ed. When we send our kids out into the world on a weekend, high school kids, we tell them quite often, if you're going to be drinking, I don't want you to do that, but if you're going to do it, call me, call someone, be safe. We need to be doing the same thing with comprehensive sex ed, and that's what it does. We keep kids safe. We start with abstinence. It's always about abstinence first. That is the only way to keep from getting pregnant and to keep from having STDs. But we would be joking ourselves if we would really think that all of the students are going to remain abstinent. So we need to show them what they need and talk about birth control and talk about the consequences of having sex so that we can prepare them for a future where their actions today don't negatively affect them the rest of their lives. As well, comprehensive sex ed is talking about the science behind everything.
Mr. Heidemann.
I'm going to go right to the state law that was passed in the House of Representatives, and I oppose it. I do not believe that a politically appointed person should decide what curriculum we teach in Anoka Hennepin. I do not believe that there should be a law in St. Paul that says that teachers don't have to teach the curriculum. We can let an outside group come in and teach it for us. I strongly believe in local control. And I believe that it's the parent's choice and the parent's right to decide the content of certain sensitive areas that progressives within Minneapolis and St. Paul want to drive into our schools. So yeah, I absolutely am opposed to it. I recommend everybody look at the Planned Parenthood bill that was passed and look at the materials in particular that they want to start teaching in the first grade. Please take a look at it.
Thank you. Next question is, Anoka Hennepin School District 11 has another lawsuit highlighting the need for policies supporting students experience all sorts of issues, which is also seen nationwide. Why is this a continuing problem in our school district? Mr. Heidemann.
So can you repeat the question? Because I'm not
Sure.
sure I understand what the question is.
Anoka Hennepin District 11 has another lawsuit highlighting the need for policies supporting students experiencing all sorts of issues. These issues are also seen nationwide. Why is this a continuing problem in our school district?
So I'm going to guess on what lawsuit that is. We have one, so I'll address it head on. We have a number of transgender students in our system, and we work very hard on a case-by-case basis to meet the needs of those students. We have been successful, except for one case where at a high school there was a request for unrestricted access to our community shower rooms and changing rooms. The school board did say no to that, and that position was based on a position of the National School Boards Association, the Minnesota School Boards Association, and current law by the Supreme Court in the Goins versus West Publishing case. That particular student and their family has decided to test that law, and we're working through the legal system, and I expect that that will go back to the Supreme Court for them to make another decision.
Thank you. Ms. Heers-McArdle?
And can
Do you need it
repeat the question?
repeated?
Yes, please.
Okay. Anoka Hennepin District 11 has another lawsuit highlighting the need for policies supporting students experiencing all sorts of issues. These issues are also nationwide issues. Why is this a continuing problem in our school district?
I think the biggest reason it's a continuing problem is because we're dealing with it on a case-by-case basis. We need clear, concrete policies that outline what the students can expect. Until we do that, we're going to have problems. So that is the biggest reason why I see this. One of the other issues is that there has been some flip-flopping in the past on what policies, how policies are going to be lived out, and we need to avoid that. So again, clear, concrete policies, and I think we could avoid those lawsuits.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is, over the years, many industrial technology classes have been dropped. With a greater need for skilled workers, what would you do to meet that need through the public schools? Ms. Heers-McArdle.
Just as we have college-level classes for high schoolers to take to basically jumpstart their college careers, I think we should be working with tech schools, with our high school students, two-year programs, working with the trades to offer the same sorts of things to our students who are not going to pursue college degrees. This was actually done back when my grandfather was in high school. He used to talk about that all the time. That was how a lot of the students got into their career field. And I think we could be working with a lot of the local industries to jumpstart the careers of our students who aren't four-year track bound.
Mr. Heidemann.
As a school district, we have always been spending more than most other school districts on our two-year programs. We have the nationally recognized model in our STEP program that everybody is trying to replicate, and I do agree that college, four-year college, is not for everybody. There's a lot of great opportunities in the skilled trades, and we make that investment. And we will continue to make that investment. We know it's important to our community. And as I said before, we have a nationally recognized model. And we're going to continue to try to strengthen that and continue that focus so that we make sure we meet the needs of all of our kids that we serve here in Anoka, Hennepin.
Thank you. Community schools are proven ways to increase student success and strengthen communities. Do you support community schools? Why or why not? Mr. Heidemann.
I believe our schools are community schools. They are, many of them are in the heart of walkable areas, and many of our parents identify with the school as being their community. And so, yes, I believe that our schools should be very strong. I've been a past PTO president at Wilson Elementary, and a lot of the work that we did was how do we engage the community to identify and participate in the schools. And so definitely I believe our schools should have a community focus and an outreach.
Ms. Heers-McArdle?
When I think of community schools, I think of schools that follow the wraparound model, which is dealing with things that happen outside of the school and bringing those into the school for greater access. Community schools, when I think of them, they fill in the gaps and identify the needs and work to fulfill those needs in the most efficient way possible. This can be done by consolidating existing programs with public agencies and nonprofit organizations, making them, again, more accessible to the students. It also helps our tax dollars. We get the most out of them. A lot of the students that would be accessing this have MA, but when your doctor's office is here and the pharmacy is here and you live here, getting all of those things together when you don't have adequate transportation is really difficult. So when we have food banks, clothing banks, closets, clinics, mental health services, and laundry facilities, not that all of those places have those, but when we bring those all together for students, it makes everything easier for them to access, including school.
Thank you. Next question is, there has been a persistent problem ensuring the dignity and safety of all students. What can Anoka Hennepin do to ensure the safety and dignity of all students? Some incidents mentioned include the arrest of a school volunteer and a child with a knife. And that goes to Ms. Heers-McArdle first. You want me to repeat it?
Please, yes, please
Okay.
repeat that.
There has been a persistent problem ensuring the dignity and safety of all students. What can Anoka Hennepin do to ensure the safety and dignity of all students? Some of the incidents mentioned include the arrest of a school volunteer and a child with a knife.
Well, without understanding the specifics behind those incidents, it's hard to nail that down, but I think the schools are doing a pretty good job with safety as far as who is getting in and out of the building. One of the things we do need to work on is the children who are already in the buildings, and when there becomes an issue of violence, how do we support our teachers and our students? Anoka Hennepin has done a good job of not calling in police for young children, which has happened in some places. So I commend the school system for that. But when classrooms have to be evacuated because students are becoming such an issue, it's a safety concern. I think we need to look at where the problem starts and how we are supporting our teachers and what is the root cause of that problem.
Thank you. Mr. Heidemann.
Yes, we have taken action with students who make mistakes. Many of them are inadvertent or non-threatening in nature. A student brings a knife potentially to school, a pocket knife or what it might be. We have very strict policies. We expel students for those issues. It comes to the school board. We take disciplinary action. We work with the family to make sure that we're not going to have those problems in the future. We go through the student discipline policies every year with students so that they know what the expectations are. We take it very seriously, and safety and security in our schools is very important to us. And I would not ever advocate for evacuating a classroom and not and disrupting the education of other students. That would not be something I'd advocate for.
Thank you. In our data-driven society, what are your ideas for holding teachers and, more importantly, administrators accountable for the success of every child, not just for results they achieve, but how they achieved them? Mr. Heidemann.
Well, the management of the organization and our staff is really in the hands of the superintendent, and so we trust that he's going to keep a close eye on the administrators that report to him. The school board is really has put in place what we've talked about before, the continuous improvement process, but it's a nationally recognized program now. We're being asked to speak about it across the country, and it's pretty unique in that there is a certain amount of pay that's tied to performance. And that goes from the superintendent all the way down to our first-line supervisors. In addition, we have QComp that we've worked out with our teachers union in collaboration to have a performance system put in place for our teachers. But that's one of the things that we can do to make sure that we stay focused on the things that are important, which is student learning, and that there is some accountability there for performance.
Thanks. Ms. Heers-McArdle, would you like that repeated?
Yes, please.
In our data-driven society, what are your ideas for holding teachers and, more importantly, administrators accountable for the success of every child, not just for the results they achieve, but how they achieve them?
Well, as Mr. Heidemann said, there are programs in place for that, but I think we also need to look at how we define success. There are students who are straight A students that can be successful, but we also need to look at the whole child. Are our programs meeting the needs that they have beyond the academics? Are the arts a part of it all? So I think we can take a look at it and see if bringing things in and out influences how well students are doing, how well they're engaged, and it varies from the younger elementary schools to the high schools. So I don't have as much inside knowledge in this area, but again, taking care of the whole child and making sure that the basic needs are being met in school with academics, but then also the other needs are being met along the way.
All right. How do you feel Section 8 housing impacts the school district, and do you have a plan for working through any growing pains associated with it, both short-term and long-term? So, Ms. Heers-McArdle?
Well, I think to separate out Section 8 housing is not really being fair to the people who live in Section 8 housing. I have been one of those people in my life, and I am not that much of a different person now as I was then. So I don't really think addressing that part of it is fair to those people. What I do think we can do, again, is to have community schools so that the people who are in those who might need a little extra help meeting their basic needs have access to that. Again, we need to be really careful about discriminating against students based on not just their skin color, but also their family income. And to separate out Section 8 housing students like that is not giving them a fair chance.
Mr. Heidemann?
Yeah, I would say that, Section 8 housing in and of itself is not an issue. What I would say is that the way that schools are funded in the state of Minnesota is based on the number of free and reduced students you have, because there is a correlation between student achievement and poverty. There's less student achievement in poverty, and that's a pretty well-known fact across the metro area. So there is an allocation of funds based on poverty. In Anoka Hennepin, we do the same thing. We make sure that the dollars and additional supports follow poverty. So where you see a school with high poverty, you'll see more supports, you'll be seeing more services for academics, you'll see more social workers to work with families to make sure they have access to the health care or the needs that they have. We have more mental health specialists. And I'd say that if you look at our schools in poverty, I'm happy to say that we have some of the best performance in the metro area in those schools.
Do you feel that the referendum delivered on all of its promises? Mr. Heidemann.
Well, we're not done yet. We did deliver on hiring more teachers to reduce class size. Thank you to the public for your support on that. We did understand, based on our surveys, our anonymous surveys to the community, that class size to parents was very important. So an investment there was needed in areas, and I think there's still more work to do in some areas for class size. We continue to do our projects. As was mentioned, we opened 2 elementary schools on time, and we're very proud of that. And we are continuing to go through and work on the facilities that we promised that we would work on. So yes, I believe we're going to meet all of the promises that we provided, which is enhanced security for our families and great learning spaces.
Thank you. Ms. Heers-McArdle?
And could you repeat that again, please?
Sure. Do you feel that the referendum delivered on all of its promises?
Well, what has been delivered so far, yes, it has. And the plans that are in place are looking great. As far as the teachers, that is wonderful, because smaller class sizes definitely give better outcomes. One other area where I think we can improve on that is to have more counselors. We are woefully low on the number of counselors we have, but as far as the referendum goes with buildings and teachers and class sizes, I think that is doing very well, and it's delivering.
Thank you.
Finishing.
This is our last question. What would you do as a school board member to increase community trust in the Anoka Hennepin School Board? So, Ms. Heers-McArdle?
I would have more open communication between teachers and parents and the administration and the board. I believe that has been lacking. I have been on the other side as a parent and not felt like my needs were being heard and my son's needs were being met. I'm kind of an outspoken person, and eventually I was heard and issues were resolved, and it was great. But I think that's something we really need to work on. When I've been talking to parents in the district, that is one of the biggest complaints, is that they don't feel the board is listening to them or to the teachers as much as they need to be. And community forums are wonderful, and having people able to come to school board meetings and speak is great. But when you get a few minutes to speak with no response, it doesn't really feel like you're being heard. So I think we need to make sure that our residents are being heard and have some feedback.
Mr. Heidemann?
Sure. We do a yearly community survey, and right now our results say that 70% of our community says the school board is doing a good to excellent job. But that's really not good enough. We can do a lot better than that. Even it is 20% higher than the average school district in the metro area, so we can be proud that we stand out in that regard. There's still lots of work to be done. The way that I like to do it is I like to go out in the community. I don't want to wait for issues to come before the school board. I want to go out and engage. I visit PTO meetings. I go to community groups. I ask a lot of questions. I'm accessible anywhere I'm at. I'll stop grocery shopping. I'll stop what I'm doing at Menards, and we'll have a conversation with the community. I'm well known in the community. I've lived here 34 years, and people, I think, feel very comfortable to seek me out and provide advice. And for the school board meetings, everybody who comes to the school board meeting does get a response. And to the extent that we do follow-ups, we will do that as well. And anybody who would call me up and say, I would not like to meet over coffee, I would meet over coffee.
Thank you. We are now finished with the audience questions, and this is now your opportunity to give us a 1-minute closing statement. And we'll start with Mr. Heidemann.
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum. This is a wonderful opportunity for the community to see the two candidates that are running for school board, and I would like to really thank you for doing that. It's very important. I have 2 children who went through the Anoka Hennepin schools. One is now a special education teacher at Anoka High School and a coach in both football and lacrosse. My daughter-in-law is a para-educator and head winter dance coach at Anoka High School. Many of my friends are teachers and educators, and I really do believe that that keeps me connected to the schools. Most recently, I've been a new grandfather, and I'm happy to say that I'm going to be looking at 2 kids going back into the school system, and I'm very, very excited and totally bought in and engaged and energized to make sure that we provide the safest schools possible for all of our students and that our students are successful. And it's been a real pleasure serving as a school board member, and 34 years in this area. I'm just so proud of what we've accomplished.
Thank you. Ms. Heers-McArdle?
First of all, thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum. My son will be spending the next 10 plus years in this district, and I want to make sure that I'm doing everything I can to make his education and that of all the students in this district the best it can be. Our children are full of potential, and it's our responsibility to help them make the most of it. I'm a very reasonable person. I love meeting people out in our community, and I'm kind of known for making friends in crazy places. I will be a voice for the teachers, families, and the students, whether people vote for me or not. Schools and students have changed an awful lot in the last few decades, and we need people who understand the challenges they're facing today. We need leaders who are willing to adapt while recognizing where our success lies and building on that success. And I have been in the trenches, I have been in the schools, and I have a son in this district. In closing, I do want to mention and thank the organizations that have endorsed me. Anoka Hennepin Education Minnesota, Outfront, Individual North Metro, Women Winning, and SEIU unions. So, thank you.
Thank you. This concludes our forum for tonight. Thank you also to our audience for listening and for coming up with such great questions.
Thank you.
I also want to thank QCTV for recording the forum and making it available to the public. I want to remind you to be sure to vote on Tuesday, November 5th by absentee ballot or in person anytime after September 20th at City Hall. You can visit our website at lwvabcmn.org or minnesotavotes.org for election information. Thank you again and good night.